In 2019, in the Sun and Moon era of Pokemon, which is when I started to kind of get back into Pokemon, we have this Blastoise here released in a non-holo and a reverse holo. There is no holo of this Blastoise card, and the set name is Sun and Moon Team Up. Who was illustrated with giving us this Blastoise artwork of doing Hydro Cannon was none other than Hitoshi Origa. Again, that is Hitoshi Origa, who was credited with giving us this Blastoise artwork. In a PSA 10 regular non-holo, there is currently only 4 of this card in a non-holo PSA 10. The reverse holo of this card, on the other hand, currently only has 16 of this card in a PSA 10, and it'll cost you a little more than the regular non-holo. Of course, the reverse holo being the more of the holo card that collecting this card. It'll cost you between $150 to $200 currently to get this card in a PSA 10 reverse holo. Later that year, Pokemon released 2 different chase cards to get a Blastoise in the Unbroken Bond set, maybe one of my favorite sets of Pokemon in the Sun and Moon era. The first chase card to collect in this set is this full art Blastoise GX. I believe this is the first GX Blastoise ever released. And who was credited with giving us this artwork was Sadigi. This goes by Sadigi, no last name. Again, the illustrator's name is Sadigi. In a PSA 10, if you're looking to get this Blastoise GX, there is currently 545 of this card in a PSA 10, and it'll cost you around $100 or so to get this card in a PSA 10. Now, this Rainbow Blastoise is definitely a chase card that collectors want to have to their collection, especially if you're a Blastoise collector. This is the first ever rainbow colored full art Blastoise. And this was illustrated by the same illustrator who illustrated the last Blastoise card, the Blastoise GX full art, and that artist's name is again Sadigi. In this set, I guess they decided to stick with the same illustrator, and he gave us 2 different Blastoise artworks. If we're looking to get this rainbow full art Blastoise in a PSA 10, there is currently only 568, and it'll cost you around $250 to add this card to your collection. This is definitely a card that I don't have in my collection, and I definitely need to add this card to my collection. The Sun and Moon era was capped off and finished with the Pokemon set Cosmic Eclipse. We got 3 different artworks of Blastoise in the set, but 4 different cards to chase in this set. First up, we have this Blastoise and Piplup GX Tag Team card, and that was illustrated by a name we haven't heard in a while, an OG Pokemon illustrator, and he goes by the name of Arita. In a PSA 10, the pop is 633. Again, there's only 633 of this card in a PSA 10, and it's fairly cheap to get this card. It'll cost you around $50 or less to get this card added to your collection. The next Blastoise card to add to your collection is another tag team of Blastoise and Piplup. I don't really like this artwork, sort of say, it's kind of bland, and that was illustrated by 5-Band Graphics. The PSA 10 pop of this card is currently 364. Again, the PSA 10 pop of this artwork and card is currently 364, and again, it is fairly cheap to get this card. It'll cost you less than $100 to get this card added to your collection. Again, as I stated, we get 3 different artworks of Blastoise in this card. Of course, it's another Blastoise and Piplup tag team card, and this was illustrated by Akira Komiyama. Again, it was illustrated by Akira Komiyama. In a PSA 10, the pop is 796. Again, 796, and again, it'll be fairly cheap to get this card and add it to your collection. It'll be less than $100. The 4th different Blastoise card to collect in this set is this rainbow full art of a previous artwork. So it's not a new artwork, but it's a new card. It is the rainbow full art Blastoise, and there is currently 628 PSA 10s of this card currently in circulation. And again, it'll cost you fairly cheap to get this card. It'll cost about $100 or less to get this card. We're going to be capping this episode with the only 2 Blastoise artworks released in the Sword and Shield era of Pokemon in the year 2022 in the Pokemon Go set. This is actually a subset of Pokemon, and because there was no other Blastoise cards released in this era, I figured I would include these Blastoise into today's lecture. First up, we have this Blastoise artwork, and that was illustrated by NC Empire. Again, this artwork was illustrated by NC Empire. In a PSA 10, there is currently 145, and I couldn't get any price data. However, I figured it'll cost you less than $100 to get this card in a PSA 10. Now, the last and final Blastoise card is this card right here, and that was illustrated by Masakazu Fukuda. Again, that is Masakazu Fukuda, who illustrated us with the last Blastoise artwork that we're going to be covering on today's episode. In a PSA 10, there is currently 3,510 of this card. Again, you heard that card, like there is. In a PSA 10, there is currently 3,510 of this card, a very popular Pokemon set, which I'm sure, as you can see by the numbers, it was super popular. Well, there you have it. Class is dismissed. Thank you for allowing me to be your professor and give you a history lesson on a majority of the Blastoise cards released in English Pokemon sets. And most importantly, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let me know in the comments how many different Blastoise artworks did we go through in this video. Let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna pick one lucky winner and definitely have something special for you guys.